The top 10 things keeping you broke in your 20s.
Race 3, number 9. Should we Afterpay? Free money.
Financially cripple themselves buying a new Hilux.
Don't want to look at your bank statement.
Live by Uber Eats, delivery fee, a service fee, $30 to $50.
The $1,000 Hexter.
I'm a knuckle dragon meathead bodybuilder that knows nothing about finance but low-key has a finance degree, and I just like to pepper in budging advice for us young lads to kind of get ahead. So I have engaged. We've got one young gun content creator, property with Harley. He's broken into the market, done pretty well for himself. So I thought, why not hit you guys with another unexpected Aussie collab and bring property with Harley on board, mate. Welcome to the channel.
Thanks for having me, mate. Definitely not an expert, definitely not some big property guru, very normal kind of person, 24 years old. I have purchased 3 investment properties. I work 2 jobs, 7 days a week. There's no big income here. I'm not a trust fund baby. I'm just kind of all about working hard and trying to put my money to better use in property.
We both make our money through different ways, but we're probably slightly ahead of the bell curve just through doing the simple things right, I guess. And we wanted to kind of chat to you guys about what strategies and basic things we implement on like a monthly or everyday basis that maybe you guys aren't doing so you can get ahead too. We're just basically going to be running through the top 10 lowest hanging fruit for things that you can implement and things that are potentially keeping you broke and just common pitfalls for the everyday boy and girl who's whether late teens or in their 20s that you can start implementing today. What are you doing, mate?
Mate, have I got a fucking winner for you? Bob down at the fucking local TAB said that this horse, race 3, number 9, he knows the cousin of the trainer's son and it just doesn't lose.
So we're starting off with a bang here, and coincidentally, we are in the poker room. So what a better way to start than with probably the biggest ticket item in Australia is gambling. Now, I've never been a big gambler. I'm just way too stingy with my money, but apparently, and I know a lot of Australians these days spend money on gambling. A lot of people probably think, no, I'm smarter than the bookies, I'm making money, I'm in the green. But I know a lot of horror stories of people who've just had crippling gambling addictions, and it honestly is a very sensitive subject, but I think it's something we should definitely talk about.
Something in moderation. So gambling's massive. If you watch a football game, you watch a tennis match, there's all different ads. I don't want to name the companies, but you'll see companies every time you watch a sporting event. There's always going to be a big gambling company. They have halftime shows with what bets you should be making. So it's just a massive part of Australian culture, which is it's pretty terrible. It kind of reminds me of when you look back at older footage of AFL and you see the cigarette ads. I feel like we're going to look at that similar to what the gambling market and ads are at the moment.
The television or broadcast channels, they make a huge proportion of their money through the gambling companies. And the reason these gambling companies are able to pay so much is because of the losses of the everyday punter. And like for me, for instance, I've been hit up by numerous gambling companies offering ridiculous amounts of money. And it's like, how are they able to just pump this amazing amount of cash into things like that? It's because of the losses. And I think there's probably a lot of stories that we do hear about, but also even more that we don't, of people just losing massive amounts of money. I remember being in school and the races were on and people were underage making all sorts of accounts and putting bets on and thinking it was cool. And I was like, dude, I've like got no money. I'm working at KFC for $9 an hour. I don't really want to lose that.
Yeah, and the odds are you're about to lose. You'll see those ads everywhere. You will lose if you gamble kind of long term. I just think it's really important, like everything, it's moderation. Mm-hmm. No matter what it is, if you have the odd gamble, I don't think that's necessarily wrong. It's more so that it's a gateway to kind of getting out of control. And when you lose control in kind of any kind of facet of your life, that's when issues start to arise.
Not to get too deep, but I've always thought, you know, if you're putting $100 bet on something and the odds are, I don't know, I know there's multis and multipliers and things like that, but it might have like a certain ROI, whether the odds are $2.50. I'm literally an idiot talking about this stuff. I don't know anything about gambling, but what if you invested like $100 in yourself in, you know, some therapy or a course or education? I'm just talking, you know, arbitrary figures here, but if you invested in yourself for a business project, you could have a way bigger ROI on that. And that's how I've always had the mindset of, why would I bet on something I don't have any impact of changing the course of? It's literally kind of chance. as opposed to like a business venture or an investment in yourself that could come back in manyfold.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things is just the ease of being able to gamble these days. Back in the days when you used to have to go into an actual gambling shop like a TAB and put the bet on with physical money. Nowadays, it's a quick deposit and you've got money in the account. It's like Monopoly money. You don't even feel like you're gambling. And I'm not going to say I've never gambled, because I have. We've had fun with mates and stuff like that. But it's just being on top of it and making sure that you are tracking, because there's a fair chance you are losing money.
So if you think you have an issue with it, I know there's all sorts of gamblers helplines and things like that, but it might be time for you to get on top of it, because we'll be chatting a lot later on the other expenses in life. But I feel like it's just, you don't need anything to be getting more expensive in your life, and it could be time to cut it out. Use those Jordans there, they look sick.
No, fuck the red ones.
Boy, should we Afterpay this? I've only got like $20 in my account, but
Yeah, well, it's free money. May as well use theirs. Afterpay, if you're listening, go and get fucked.
I know a lot of people with Afterpay addictions and just buying clothes they don't need in installments to, I don't know if it's a cash flow management tool, but I think it's a good way of staying broke.
And like, if you don't have the money, you're buying a pair of shoes that's $200. If you're needing to use Afterpay, it's simple as you just can't afford it. If you can't buy it in cash, then you shouldn't be looking at buying that item. I think they do tickets and stuff now, which I get, everyone wants to go to the next concert and you don't want to miss out, but how about just saving a little bit or working a little bit extra and then paying for that in cash rather than owing someone money? It's credit at the end of the day.
And businesses love it because it increases conversion, because they're probably ticking over those customers that, you know, are living paycheck to paycheck, and they're just forwarding another transaction to get more material items through the door while they hopefully get more money and get their bread up. But yeah, I think the argument is like, oh, if I just pay it off, like there's no downside. But there are people who don't pay it off and they get charged exorbitant amounts of interest. Do you know any stories or anything like that?
Well, I'd say we're both not experts on Afterpay, but in working in associate mortgage broking at the moment, we go through statements, pay slips, all those kind of things. So we know exactly what you're spending, we know exactly what you're getting paid, and Afterpay is a recurring thing that comes up on a lot of young people's statements and such. And like you said, again, we're not experts on Afterpay because I don't think either of us use it, but people will have that argument that if you pay it off on time, that's fine. But the thing is, the reason the company is so large and is making all this profit is because people aren't paying it back on time, and that interest is what snowballs. And when the interest snowballs, that's when you get stuck paying a much bigger debt than you should have been paying in the first place.
I feel like leverage should only be used for like sound business opportunities or property. That's generally...
It's appreciating assets. You don't want to be leveraging into something that's ultimately going to depreciate, whether it's cars like we spoke about before, or it's the new pair of shoes. They're depreciating assets. I don't know if you'd call a new pair of shoes assets, but essentially they're losing value.
Exactly. So Afterpay, steer clear from. So number 3, we are talking about financing cars or financing depreciating assets. I think there's a lot to talk about on this one.
Yeah, so obviously a depreciating asset is something that loses value. So cars, as soon as you drive them out of the showroom floor, they lose value. So year on year, your car is going to be less valuable than it was the year before. So it's kind of a double whammy when you finance to buy this depreciating asset, because your loan essentially, I know you're paying it off, but you've got a loan out for $50,000, and 5 years from now, that car is not worth the same as you've paid for it.
Probably the most common one is like your average tradie who's on apprentice wages, 18, 19, and they just literally financially cripple themselves by buying a new Hilux.
Yeah, and I get it. Like, I get a lot of people like that, and I know a lot of people that you see your hard work starting to pay off. It's the first time you've had a little bit of money. You finally got a big boy job, and you're earning your own way. But it's honestly the biggest mistake I probably see young people making is going out and like you said, going to buy that brand new Hilux or the new ute that they want. And I know, I'd love the new ute. Trust me, I'd love that. Like, we'll insert a little shot of my Kia Cerato 2009. It's a shit box. I've got a net worth of around $710,000 that I've broken down in my videos, but I still drive around a shit box. What I'm big on is this delayed gratification piece, where I could afford a nice car now, but I'd rather put my money into appreciating assets like property.
100%. And I think that's a really good way to stay behind, is blowing all your cash straight away on your dream car. I think for any sort of purchase, you should be able to pay for it outright. at least 5 times over, and that's like at a minimum. And now there are different things, like if you finance something through a business and potentially tax deducting the interest repayments, you can look at that, but we're just talking the average relatable situation in that financing a car you can't afford is definitely a no-go.
Yeah, and again, relating it back to property, being the property guy and I work in broking, to your borrowing power, having a car loan is a massive impact. People don't realise how big of an impact having a car loan can be. If you have a $50,000 car loan, you could impact your borrowing by up to 5 times the value of that car loan. So if you have $750,000 of borrowing power and you have a $50,000 car loan, you now have borrowing of around $500,000, which is a $250,000 reduction. If you follow a diet and work hard, you can look like this. And if you follow a budget and work hard, your bank balance can look the same. All right, the next point I want to touch on is ignorant spending. If you don't know what you're spending from month to month, how are you ever going to be able to hit your financial goals and hit a goal? For me, I had a savings goal of $50,000 last year. I wouldn't have hit that goal if I didn't have a budget in place and a plan to reach it. So for me, working backwards, reverse engineering that goal. So 50,000, you divide by 12 months. You've got to work out exactly how much per month you need to save to reach that goal. So if you don't have a budget in place, there's zero chance you're reaching your financial goals.
I'm a big believer in what gets tracked gets improved, and a lot of people, the thing they want to achieve the most, or the thing that they're putting off the most, is the thing that they're most ignorant of. So whether that's stepping on the scales and actually checking their weight in the morning on an empty stomach, or checking their cash flow, or checking their credit card statement at the end of the month, that is the thing you actually need to tackle head on the most. I know for me, I was like behind on 1.5 years worth of taxes, and I just kept putting it off, and I was scared to check zero. And one day I just woke up being like, today's the day, and I just went through it all, and it only took like a week of liaising with my accountant and got through it all, and I was like, such a relief now, and I just tackled it head on. So I feel like there's a lot of things people probably have that's similar to that, where you just need to bite the bullet and get head on with. In this circumstance, we're talking about ignorant spending. So what are you actually blowing your hard-earned money on that just doesn't need to be there?
And I feel like everyone can relate to that. Everyone knows you've had a weekend where you go, shit, I've really spent more than I wanted to. I don't want to look at the statements. And I feel like that's just like a reality check we need to have a look at and be like, there's a reason you don't want to look at your bank statements and look at what you're actually spending, because you're ashamed of what you're spending. So I think it's really important to just start being more open with yourself and actually tracking what you're spending. So for me, like, I've got a budget tool that I follow. I've obviously got my goal of what I want to save. So I set out like a budget of what I'm aiming to save each month. But at the end of every month, I've got a reminder in my phone as well to go back into that monthly budget. And there's a section there where I've got an actual kind of part of my budget. And that's to say, did I actually put that savings away into that section, or did I not miss that goal? And if I did miss that goal, why?
Yeah, for me, I am a little bit different, because I feel like the upside through like business projects is you can make however much, but I'm just very conscious of what I'm spending on. So for positive ROI things, which I believe in, like this camera or a laptop or a new lens or some staff that's going to really take a lot of workload off me, I feel like that's completely necessary. And I just like to make sure my profitability is good every month, and then that money, what's that doing there in the future when I get a mortgage? Will I be having more than enough to clear that mortgage and just ensure cash flow is good? I literally am probably borderline obsessive with it. I check it like once or twice a day how much money comes in, because I don't know, I'm addicted to seeing the bank balance go up, and I'm like, I want to clap this shit out of this mortgage. I want to pay it off in a year. So I don't know, you can kind of get like that, and I feel like, again, what gets tracked gets improved. Bro, I've got this pizza from last night. Cold pizza. What do you reckon? I think cold pizza's the goat. If you guys are new to the channel, you probably don't know, but I am the biggest meal prep merchant you'll ever meet. I think I've been doing it since I was 18 or 19. Never look back. I think it is a fantastic way to save on money, obviously get the nutrients you need into your body. But I've ordered Uber Eats before, and there are a lot of people that literally live by Uber Eats. But for me, if I need even one meal, it's probably costing $30 to $50. I'm a bigger boy, I need a lot of food, and I swear, like, there's a delivery fee, a service fee. The food itself is already inflated, and again, that's going on a credit card or something like that. And I think that is a fantastic way to stay broke if you accumulate that over a week or a year.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say I'm the expert on meal prep because you look at me and you go, look at this little runt talking about meal prepping. But I do meal prep, believe it or not. I meal prep every single day. So I have my little burrito bowl, and it's just one meal I have every single day. And it's like, no matter what the morning looks like, no matter what the dinner looks like, it's just one meal where I go, all right, I've hit my protein. It's rather low calorie, and I know I've had one solid meal a day. And not just that, I feel like the productivity gains of not having to worry about cooking a meal, not having to worry about
less decision fatigue for sure. For me, obviously I'm on a very stringent diet right now with the bodybuilding prep, but I'm actually so much more productive now because I know what meal goes when, I know what to get from the grocery store. It's literally like clockwork. Not to mention, if you do have physique goals or anything, you just can't do it with anything else than meal prep. And I think I've worked it out. On average, each meal is around $3 to $5, and people see my grocery bill at the end of the week and it's like, you know, $150, and I'm getting everything from the butcher and greengrocer, and like, you're spending all this money. It's like, mate, even if I got Uber Eats 2 to 4 times during the week, that'd be $200. So the amount you're saving plus the other gains you're making through there, it really is a no-brainer. You're saving time, less decision fatigue, improving your physique. Any other benefits you can think of?
No, we've already kind of touched on it. It's just, for me, like, I have my Sunday recess. I don't know when you do your meal prep, but I have a big Sunday cook up. It's kind of the one day of the week I'm not working as much as I do on the other days, and it's just a time where I go, all right, let's meal prep me 7 lunches. I even actually meal prep me protein shakes. That's how lazy I am. I chuck like 14 scoops of protein powder into a big blender, and then I pour it into 7 little jars, so I know I'm getting my little double shot of protein powder, and it's no clumps, easy to go, grab it out of the fridge, bang. And it's just like, I don't know if that's lazy or peak big brain, I don't know what it is, but yeah.
No, that is fantastic, mate. I'm all for that. I'm very similar, and obviously the center point of most of my content is meal prep. So if you are new to the channel, if you haven't checked it out, I've got all sorts of stuff on bulking on a budget for students, or more high-end stuff from the butcher, or just getting general nutrients in weight loss. So that is literally, you look through my channel, some of the highest viewed videos, or my reels or TikTok, there's so much meal prep stuff on there. So if you need some inspiration, go have a look at that. Also releasing a cookbook in a few weeks to help lots of you guys out there. Meal prep is the meta. I don't know about you, mate, but I've got like a $60,000 hex debt. I think they actually reduced it, but I think for me, uni was definitely worth it. But for your situation, I think uni is a lot of money, and I believe we're in a society where, particularly from private schools, like, they just push people in to go to uni. But I don't know, coming after it, I just think uni perhaps isn't for everyone.
Yeah, and I think I'm probably nearly the prime example of who uni isn't for. I rushed in, same thing, private school, everyone pushes you, ATARs, everything, and that's the be all and end all, and then uni's just kind of the next step. So I started a commerce degree. This was during COVID, when it was all online, so there was no friendships, nothing built. The teachers were all online. It was kind of a shit time to be doing university. And I actually ended up dropping out. It was kind of during that time that I was quite interested in property. I was getting my feet kind of involved. And that's when, I decided to kind of make the leap into property. I realised that I didn't need the commerce degree to kind of do what I wanted to do in property. So I guess my biggest advice with that is just, there is no rush. If you need to take that year off and work or travel or do whatever it is, I just don't think there's that massive rush to go into uni like the schools make you feel like.
Yeah, dude, for me, I remember I was like, no, I'm not picking a gap year, going straight into it, smashing it out. I wanted to go into either investment banking or mergers and acquisitions, because I thought I was Patrick Bate here and there. Then I started an economics degree, and I thought, I want to go work for the RBA, got really high results. But then social media kicked off, and I thought there were cool opportunities elsewhere, and kind of stumbled into this. So obviously have those technical degrees in that aspect. And a lot of people say, do you regret uni? Was it a waste of time? I think for me, it definitely added credibility and allowed me to kind of flourish in a business sense. For other people, I think, do you really need it for what you want to do? I think that's a big question to ask. Do you want to incur that, at least $30,000 of debt for a degree? So that is a serious conversation, and something you should probably put a lot of thought into.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I do feel like people, as I was saying, you feel that forced pressure to go and do something. I don't think at the end of the day, if you're listening to this and you're in high school and you're deciding whether you should really try and get these high marks, I think it's fine. Like, just go shoot for it, and at least give yourself the option that if that is what you decide you want to do, if you decide that the career I want to chase is one that needs a degree, well then that's something that you could definitely...
You see, a lot of people use that cop-out in high school for pure laziness. They're like, oh, I'm not going to go to uni anyway, so I'm not going to try in year 12. It's like, no, that is literally a cop-out for you not wanting to try hard. I get some people might have learning disabilities and are set on other things, but I feel like year 12 is a genuine testament to the kind of grit and discipline that you have to get shit done, because year 12 is a game, like there's so much going on, so I feel like at least give it your best shot so it opens up doors, because don't make that decision that early, like put some thought into it. By the way, side note, not from uni, what the f is going on with my legs? And this is like genuine paper cut territory here, like what is that? That's crazy.
And then you look at
7 weeks out from a bodybuilding show versus 4 investment properties at 24.
Like this whole video has been about borrowing power, at least from my input anyway, but I am a mortgage broker, so I thought I'd jump in again. And obviously a HEX debt will impact your borrowing power. So if you do have that HEX debt, like me, I had $20,000 odd of HEX debt and I didn't even get the degree from it. And this impacted my ability to get loans. So I was fine for the first 2 properties, but before I purchased the 3rd property, I had to pay that HEX debt off. So if it was a little bit different situation, I had that higher HEX debt like Gabe or a lot of people out there do have, it's just something you need to think about before rushing into uni. And again, just making sure it's really what you want to be doing.
We also have a nice little backdrop of some nice drinks and things here. And I know for people my age and when I was younger, a lot of people would literally just blow $300 on a night out and not even think about it and just check their bank account when they've got that mad anxiety in the morning and be like, oh, another $300 spent this weekend. They're doing that Friday, Saturday, and repeating that most weeks. I think that is a massive thing. If you accumulate that over the year, you're losing tons of money in that, and it can probably be avoided.
Like obviously both of us at the moment, we're both on a little sober stint. We've both previously drank in the past, and I plan to drink again. So I'm not coming from a high horse saying don't drink, don't do this, cut all that kind of out. Again, it's back to moderation. Like Gabe was saying, if it's $300 every weekend, that's 15 grand a year. If you do that Friday, Saturday night, that's 30 grand a year you're spending on alcohol. And it's just something, for me, the reason, it wasn't actually a financial reason that I did cut alcohol out for the last few months. It's more so been the mental side of it. I've got big goals and big dreams I'm kind of working towards. So if I wake up on a Sunday and I've got that anxiety, I've got the Sunday scaries because I've had a massive night before and now I know I've got a huge week ahead, it just puts me behind the 8 ball, and that's one of the reasons I got rid of it.
100%. I honestly feel like if you go out drinking, you probably lose 2 to 3 days worth of momentum and productivity. And I'm not pushing my sober stance on any of you guys. I'm literally just saying it from my experience. Obviously, I'm doing it for a bodybuilding comp because alcohol is probably the worst thing you can put into your body. But I've found the mental clarity and just general life progress I've made every week that I don't drink compounds and is absolutely insane. Not only the progress I've made with my physique on this bodybuilding prep, but I've actually figured out different things with my business. My content's doing better. My relationships with girlfriends and friends are so much better. I just have this amazing clarity now. So I couldn't recommend to you guys more than to do a little bit of a sober streak, whether that's for health reasons or, money making or career reasons. I think it is definitely good. You'll save a ton of money and probably make a lot more money with just the creativity and discipline you've got back.
Oh, for sure. And I don't want to speak on your behalf, but when I was deciding whether I wanted to go through with not drinking, you go through the scenarios. What are my friends going to think? Am I going to be able to still have fun like that? And I look back on kind of the last few years of my life. So I'm 24 now, and honestly, I don't think I would have gone more than 2, 3, 4 weeks without having a drink since I was about 17, 18, which is it's pretty crazy when you think about it. It's probably the only drug in the world that if you give it up, people ask what's wrong.
Yeah, I was definitely a bit of a late bloomer, so I was always used to being socially ostracized. Didn't have my first drink until 2 months after year 12 or something. So I was the biggest square. And I was always used to what, you judge me because I'm not drinking, I could not care less. I think that was probably the best thing for my brain development. God knows I need every single brain cell I can gather at this point. But the key is definitely having friends that aren't going to make fun of you and actually be supportive of the goals. So I have such amazing friends now because of this comp prep. They've actually seen the progress I've made, and a lot of times when we go out to, like we went to a techno event last night under the bridge, and so many of my mates weren't even drinking or just having Coke Zeros or waters, and that honestly like brings a tear to my eye that I'm not even telling them like, bro, stop drinking. They like do it for themselves because they see the progress I've made. And so that's freaking amazing. If you've got a friend group out there, maybe you can be that person to start that consider yourself influence kind of thing. We've just touched on alcohol. We know there's a whole taboo topic of other sorts of things that people buy, like getting a bag in with the boys, and we know how expensive those things are in Australia. And I'm sorry if you are under 18 watching this video, but I'm not going to talk like I've got my head in the sand. There's way worse things that people are spending their money on. The prices are insane. The health degradation is terrible. So that is also something to consider.
Yeah, and I think they're almost paired together. Like, for the people that do the things we were talking about, the drugs and the alcohol is a gateway drug to doing drugs. There wouldn't be too many people that I would know that would do those kind of things without being on the drink. So literally. I feel like they are to be paired together. So it's not saying that we're coming from a high horse, don't do this, don't do that. It's moderation, but yeah, from my perspective anyway, I've never felt better since giving up the alcohol for the last couple of months. And I'm doing it because I've got some projects I'm working on. I'm doing a marathon in May, and then after that, I cannot wait to dive into a couple of pints of beer. But it's just a little period of my life where I just want to lock in and focus on what I'm working on.
The rule of thumb, I think, if you're good with cash flow, you're good with your finances, you're not a ridiculous spender and you're actually tracking, I think credit cards can actually be quite beneficial. But I know a lot of people that are in massive credit card debt and literally paying 21.49% interest per annum. I had a platinum business Amex in the past. They make the statements quite confusing. I was like, is this what I need to pay off or is this? And I had like $60,000 on my statement because I was like, I'm chilling, like I've got another month to pay this off. Obviously had the money there to pay it all off. And then I checked my statement and I've been charged $1,400 interest. And I rang them up. I rang Amex up and I was like, I've literally told you before, your statements are so confusing. I've got the money there and you've just charged, like I was, as financially savvy blokes, getting charged $1,400 interest for something you didn't need the money for.
It's funny you say that though. Like I used to work at NAB in the kind of credit and lending section of NAB. And even then, I still didn't understand credit cards and how you get them paid off. And I was the one that was guiding kind of customers and stuff through how to read the statement. Yep. So it just goes to show that they do make them hard to read and hard to understand, because ultimately if you don't make that full repayment, that's when you charge interest and that's where they make their money.
Yeah, I'd say just be really careful. Now I'm in the habit of, I've got my business credit card because I do think the points are something that if you are going to be spending the money anyway and you've got the money there, it can be quite useful. But I literally will pay it off every week. We have all sorts of expenses through the company, like stock, staff, subscriptions. I literally pay all the Australia Post on there, all my taxes to the ATO, all insurances. So it definitely adds up. And that's a couple of flights to Europe a year for me. And that's very useful, but it does incur a lot of expenses. So I'm just paying that off like every week. You could do it every month, but just make sure you're on top of that, because I think it's a really good way to cripple you if that gets out of hand.
Yeah, and like similarly to the car finance piece, the credit card in terms of borrowing power. So as I said, I work in mortgage broking. If you are looking to go for a home loan, banks are going to look at not just, I don't care if you've got a $15,000 credit card and it's fully paid off. What the bank's going to look at is they're going to say that you've fully spent that 15K, because at the end of the day, it's still a credit facility. You could go tomorrow and spend 15K at the casino or on a car. So in the bank's eyes, they don't care if you've paid it off in full. You still have that full $15,000 credit limit. And when it comes to your borrowing power, that could easily be 3 to 5 times reduction in what your borrowing power is. So if you have a $10,000 credit card, that could be 50K off your borrowing power, which when you're trying to purchase a property, 500,000 down to 450
that's considerable.
Make a difference.
Yeah,
for sure.
And what I've learned, having been someone that is self-employed, going for mortgages and things, banks are very risk averse. They want to mitigate risk at all opportunities, mitigate any sort of risk exposure. And if you have a credit card, they're assuming the worst. They're like, this bloke's a degenerate gambler. He's going to blow it all on $300 withdrawals from the ATM, this guy sucks. So even if you do have a credit card there, you just have to be really careful. Luckily for my one, it was through the company name, so they didn't actually include it at all, and the company accounts are all separate. But yeah, I don't even have a personal credit card. I just have the business one, so credit cards are definitely something to consider. For me, this isn't an advice or anything, but I found the Amex through Qantas. I probably got a referral code or something there that if you guys sign up, I'll get so many bonus points from. Literally Amex sponsored athlete here. But it is really good. Like, probably I spend 30 grand a month through that. So that's a lot of points coming through. Hopefully going to Europe this year, potentially get business class for the first time ever. And yeah, just look into them, weigh them up. You can get all sorts into the points hacking, and they can be beneficial.
Yeah, and again, not trying to make this a mortgage broking chat, but we also need to understand that it does impact your credit score. So what your credit score is basically what the banks are looking at on how risky you are to lend money to. So if you've had a lot of short-term loans, personal loans, car finances, credit cards, anything like that, that's all dinging on your credit report. So even if you pay it back in full, the fact that you are needing loans for these smaller kind of high, I guess, percentile loans, it shows that you're not saving. It shows that you actually need these loans to kind of continue. So you just need to be aware that even though you are points hacking and you're on top of it, it can still impact your credit score, which can impact you getting a loan down the line. When it comes to getting a home loan, if that's even what you want to do, banks are going to look at these statements. So if you're not looking at them, I promise you the bank will be looking at them. They'll be going through your statements line by line. So if you have the gambling, you have the Afterpay, if you have subscriptions, that's another point I feel like we could really touch on, where how many subscriptions do you have? Netflix, Amazon, Disney, like how many different shows do you need that just add up that you wouldn't even know you even have?
I'm a big football or soccer fan, and to watch all the different tournaments, you literally need like 5 different services. You need Optus Sports, Stan, Paramount, like KO Sports. I like the NBA app as well. There's so many different ones. I just like find a will or a way to watch them somehow.
It's the perfect chance to have a health check on your statements, go through. And I can promise you, I went through this maybe about 3 months ago, and like I'm a great budgeter. I've always been a great saver, but I was going through and I had Apple payments, apple.com coming out, and I'm like, I have no idea what this even is. And it's like, it's such a general one, and you just see apple.com/bill or whatever.
I hate that.
And I'm like, am I getting scammed? Because I don't remember what I'm paying for it.
They just tax you for your last $10 in your account. I hate that. So the last one we want to talk about is crypto or investments you don't know anything about, which will segue into the Q&A. You guys asked a bunch of great questions. So a guy called Angus Hose asked thoughts on crypto. I think it's a controversial one because I think the premise of some cryptocurrencies is pretty cool. Decentralized money essentially, and not letting central banks have all the power and all sorts of different technology of complete transparency in transactions. I think some of them there actually is intrinsic value there. It's pretty cool. At the same time, even the really like intrinsically valuable ones are extremely volatile. And I know a lot of people have lost a lot of money. A lot of people have made a lot of money. We're no crypto experts, but
yeah, and this definitely isn't a financial advice piece. It's just more so from our, like, I guess our experience. Like, you would know, I can guarantee that you would probably have a mate that's lost some money on crypto. It's some shit coin that you've heard of, and it's going to the moon, and it's kind of it's a craze, and people are buying into this. But like, it kind of just goes back to the fundamentals of investing. Like, if you don't fully understand what you're investing in, which I don't think a lot of people do, that people don't truly understand what they're actually investing and buying into when it comes to crypto. For me, I just never would invest in something I don't fully understand. Like, going forward, yes, I may have a percentage in crypto and more solid and backed coins, but it's just something that I would have to research, and I wouldn't invest unless I fully knew what I was buying.
anyone that tells you to invest in anything, what's the acronym? DYOR, do your own research. Yes, I got that right. Always do your own research. Like, just every situation is different, and you need to have a solid understanding. I think, yeah, obviously you have a solid understanding of property. That's why you're invested in it. I have a solid understanding of my businesses and what I'm able to make money of. And that's why I'm mostly invested in myself and in business. So do your own research. Crypto, we're not able to comment on whether you should do it. I have a small percentage in crypto. I just like fund money through there. Yeah, 5 years ago, and it's like up 3x, but
it's money you would have been willing to lose. It's not money that you will need a few years from now.
And it literally like went down to 30% of the value, and I forgot about it. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, who cares? And then all of a sudden it's up like 3 times what I invested, and that's just honestly pure luck in market swings. So there's a lot more on the investment side of things, but we are nowhere near qualified to give personalized financial advice. So we're steering clear of that topic and just touching on the general thing there. B. Dobe says, not a question, but this is an unreal collab, anabolic finance, mate. We are bringing the unexpected collabs. Appreciate that. So we have Jordan Stewart 9. How much money should you have before you get a loan to buy a house? So this is actually something, there was a comment, it wasn't like a disagreement, it was just like 2 different perspectives, which is really interesting. So do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, so basically when it comes to a deposit, there's no, I guess when it comes to property in general, there's no real right and wrong way to do it. For me and Gabe, we've got a very different outlook on property. For example, like I don't know how much you've dived into it, but looking for his owner-occupied place, somewhere that he wants to reside. And all of my investments are investments. They're interstate, they made the most sense. Numbers-wise, the metrics made sense, and I've been fortunate enough to benefit from that growth. But two very different strategies, 2 very different kind of deposits and what's required. So you could get away with a deposit from anywhere from 5% all the way to 20%, which a 5% deposit you're probably getting in with a first home buyer scheme. For me, I use 10 to 12% deposits, which is kind of a sweet point when it comes to buying investment properties, because I don't want too much capital involved. But down the owner-occupied path, and if you do have the funds available, obviously a 20% deposit to not pay LMI is also an option too.
So basically you're saying $1 million purchase price, just for easy maths here, you could put down 50k plus steps.
Yeah. So that's the first home owner scheme, and they do vary by state. So make sure you do check individual to your state. We're in Victoria here, so it's going to be very different to what it is New South Wales and Queensland, and the amounts and I guess the incomes you can earn to be like eligible for that. A lot of them are around $110,000 to $120,000. Don't quote me on that, but you do need to make sure that you're earning under that amount to even be eligible as well.
Yeah, 100%. For me, I have decent cash flow, had been a notorious saver. So for me, I just thought, why would I pay LMI? Like maybe I would have more cash liquidity if I put down a smaller deposit, but also then my mortgage would be so big and then my repayments would be so big. So I don't know, am I doing the right thing here, or am I just like foregoing an easy benefit of being more leveraged and having more liquid cash but paying extra in interest repayments?
Again, there's no real like right or wrong way to do it. Like for me, and it's fortunate that you're in the position to have a business and be in a position that you can use a 20% deposit, whereas a lot of people, if you look at house prices in Melbourne, Sydney, all of these places, a 20% deposit, how long is that going to take you to save? So it's like the point of LMI, yes, I know it's a fee that you have to pay, but you can add it to the loan. But if it can get you into a property a few years earlier, and then you get the equity build with that, rather than waiting for the 20% deposit, and then all of a sudden that 20% deposit target you were targeting needs to be higher because the value of that property no longer is the original value, if you get what I mean. It's gone to another level.
The converse as well is look, Australia's not really used to this, but if there is a property decline and you're over leveraged with a 95% LVR, and then your house is worth 200 grand less, all of a sudden you're up shit creek without a paddle.
Yeah, so definitely that too, but it's from the bank size, like we said earlier in the video, they're so conservative. So when it comes to people talk about decline in property and like the GFC, what if that happens back here in Australia? And we have a thing called APRA, so they regulate and pretty much keep an eye on the banks, and what they do is say the home loan rate is 6.5%. They add a 3% buffer rate, so they legally cannot give you a loan if you can't service that loan at 9.5%. Which, when you're talking about percentages, being able to afford a loan at 9.5%,
that's a lot.
It's a lot of cash.
$700,000.
So it's a lot of money. So yes, I get your point. Property is a cyclical market. It goes up, it goes down. Holding for the long term, there's a fair chance you will be okay. But yeah, it's back to you with the the 20%
I
department.
remember 4th year at uni, I did property investment, such a good subject. And apparently, like, I don't know how many decades ago about that. Guys, we have so many questions in there and we've chatted for ages. I feel like we could just make 10 videos on all this stuff. If you guys enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like on the video so we actually know, and leave a comment down below saying how much you love it and pumping our tires up. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and if you want any more videos for Harley and I to create, give us some ideas in the comments down below. Other than that, do you want to say anything?
No, I feel like I've been stitched up with the last shot on the rigs. This was his idea, not mine, as you can tell. But yeah, it's been a pleasure, mate.
Thanks so much for watching, guys. Mwah. That was great.